One of the biggest problems that most people face when they start or try to record in their homes is the actual sound of the room that they're recording in. When you go to a studio to record, the playing room is tuned, and there are physical dimensions that work really well to create a nice acoustic space. There's math involved to figure these things out. But most of us don't have the luxury of having that kind of a situation. This room here is 14 by 12 by 8. All those numbers are divisible by 2, and it's almost 14 by 14. And having those even numbers is a prime recipe for creating a bad acoustic space. You get standing waves, you get flutter echoes, you get inaccurate bass response. So if you look on my walls, I have acoustic treatment. I've got these broadband traps on the side walls, and in the corners I've got bass traps. They're thicker, they attenuate frequencies that are much lower than the broadband traps, and I've got bass traps on the floor, and in the back I've got these wooden things called diffusers that soften the sound and spread it out as it reflects back off the walls. For mixing purposes, I sit here in my desk. I've got my speakers back there. The way I've got this set up is that the sound emanates from the speakers and bounces off the wall and comes back to my ears. So that's called the first reflection points. I've got sound treatment there, which helps with the stereo imaging, and it helps to alleviate nodes in the room that can cause really inaccurate listening. That's not really something that we need to be concerned with what we're doing with the school, but these are things that you should have in the back of your mind. The thing about this room is that it's very quiet. Room tone is very important to the sound of an instrument. For example, if you were to close mic a snare drum, an orchestral snare drum, and just hit it, it'd be one sound. If you were to play it in LaFrac Hall and you're standing at the back of the room, it becomes a totally different animal, and the room sound really can make the sound of the instrument. If we're going to be recording remotely and sending files back and forth to each other, what we want to do is keep the room sound down to a minimum, as little as we can get. When you have all these different rooms being recorded and try to make a cohesive mix out of that, it's better to have a quieter sound under those circumstances. Is it the optimal thing? No. But given my circumstances here, that's what I choose in this room. There is some ambience in this room. It's not completely anechoic. It's not completely dead, but it's pretty quiet. So now I'm in the stairwell of my house. I'm speaking very haltingly so you can hopefully hear the ringing noise that's coming from very hard, close together, parallel surfaces. I'll clap and it'll become even more apparent. Right now, I'm in my living room, and it's a big rectangle. Lots of hard parallel surfaces. There is a carpet on the floor. There are a couple of couches, but there's a TV table, there's a coffee table, hard surfaces. The walls have pictures on them. There's nothing soft to absorb the sound. And in this room, it's pretty loud. Standing here, I can hear that ringing coming from the stairwell, which is directly in back of me. And I'm not sure if the mic is picking it up, but we need to do something without spending a ton of money to make a space that's a little bit better, or as best as we can, to capture a drier sound. Phase one, I have here 2 microphone stands. They have boom arms on them, and I've got them extended up pretty high, and I've got them set up like an L, and that they come together in the middle. You can do this with anything that you can hang something on. I'm now seated in a chair with an acoustic guitar, and as you can see behind me, I've taken 2 packing blankets and draped them over the mic stands. In essence, what I'm doing is I'm stopping the wall in back of me from being a reflective surface. There's still sound that I can hear from the room down there, but the ringing is greatly reduced. If I clap my hands, I can barely hear that ringing from the stairwell, whereas before it was definitely audible to me in the room. So guitar is my secondary instrument. I'm just going to play a few chords on it, nothing fancy, just so we can get a temperature for the sound now. It's a very clean and quiet sound, and one that will translate out well when you're trying to make it blend in with 4 or 5 or maybe 10 other friends of yours, colleagues, classmates, when you're making an ensemble piece. Last check, now I'm in my studio, which is much drier. And let's hear what the guitar sounds like in here. This is one technique you can use to make your home recordings better. This is also helpful if you're an educator preparing a lesson. To have a quiet space to speak in makes it easier for the students to understand what you're saying. Also, less ear fatigue because your ears are not constantly battling the room tone to hear the articulation of the speaker. I hope this has been helpful.